Hello and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. And today is truly an international event because we are coming to you live simultaneously from New Zealand and from the USA. And I am very pleased about today's event because not only are we talking about a subject that I'm super interested in, professional services and LinkedIn, but we have a very special guest from the USA, a very good friend of mine and a fellow gardener, Marc Halpert. Now, Marc's in Connecticut, and I'm going to let you know a little bit about him before I bring him on and introduce you to him in person today. But I would just like to explain what we are going to do today first. So we will be having a chat, Marc and I, about some various aspects of LinkedIn professional services and how the two work together. And then we are going to talk about gardening. Now, Marc and I are both avid gardeners, and in my case, hands up, I'm an addict. I brought in a few of my house plants today in Marc's honor. And so we will be talking a little bit about gardening too, because we love the fact that we have the shared interest and we are right across the world. So we invite your questions and your comments at the end of the formal LinkedIn part of our discussion today. We will be dealing with questions that you have, so do feel free to put them into the comments, and then Marc and I will go on and talk about gardening, possibly for the rest of the day. Now, what's really interesting is that today, for me, it is Tuesday morning, and for Marc, it is just Monday afternoon and early evening, which is just one of the wonderful things about LinkedIn. So let me tell you a bit about Marc before we get started. Now, he's what he calls a multipreneur, and I just love that. So in 2010, he started his third concurrent company, Connect to Collaborate, and we'll have some links to his various profiles and his company and other things on the screen during our discussion this morning. And he started Connect to Collaborate to spread his LinkedIn and networking evangelism, to train and coach others and offer professionals the opportunity to better explain how to present their brand and positioning on LinkedIn and for LinkedIn audiences. So he's a LinkedIn coach, and he personally advises and mentors professionals in all walks of life to renovate, I like that word, their LinkedIn professional profiles and company pages. As you'll find out, he's a high energy speaker. He's often asked to keynote at conferences, and he's an in-house instructor to large and small professional services firms. That's why we're talking to him today. He's taught at bar associations, professional practitioner groups, and law schools on the topic of LinkedIn. Now, Marc, like me, has written books about LinkedIn too. So he's written one, LinkedIn Marketing Strategies for Law and Professional Practices, and another one, You, Us, Them, LinkedIn Marketing Concepts for Non-Profit Professionals Who Really Want to Make a Difference. And that is the only book of its kind aimed at the not-for-profit sector. So Marc is a frequent guest. He is an author of articles. He blogs every business day, and I just love his LinkedIn nugget. And it is one of the first things that I read every business day because Marc is a very, very talented writer. So hello from New Zealand, Marc, and a very warm welcome.
Do you really start your business day with my blog? I'm flattered.
Yeah, because it's right at the top of my emails.
Well, that's wonderful. Then I'm doing something right. Great. Thank you for having me. We hatched this concept a few weeks ago, and we've been giggling about it online ever since, about what we're going to do, plotting to teach you something not only about LinkedIn, but to show off our garden a little bit. So if you don't mind, folks, we just indulge us a bit, if you will.
And I love your backdrop, Marc. Explain to us what that exemplifies.
Down here, there's New Zealand. And I chose this backdrop because all my other world backdrops left off Australia and New Zealand. And I don't know what's wrong with them. So I figured for this audience, I would go the dark route. It's getting to be evening over here. We're interconnected all over the world. So just a little bit of a different background for me.
Well, I love it. And I love that New Zealand is included because, as you say, we do tend to get left off most lists, which is a little unfortunate because I believe that New Zealand punches above its weight. But then I might be slightly biased, Mark. Right. Shall we talk about LinkedIn and professional
Sure.
services firm? Right. Okay. So I
Sure.
want to start by asking you how professional services firms differ from other industries when it comes to LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, I'm going to broadly and very broadly define professional services as anybody who is selling intellectual knowledge. Something that you had to go for higher education to get either certified or sit for a test, or that you provide something that you learned along the way from your experience. Now, this is not manufacturing. This is intellectual work. It is knowledge-based sales that you're doing. That could be really anybody, really just about anybody. And even within a manufacturing environment, there are people who are intellectual experts. You can have, for example, the head attorney in a manufacturing company. You can have somebody who's doing bank management, bank account management in the treasury. That's all knowledge-based information. So really anything that you can't touch and actually hold, and that's just about everything these days, because we are in a service economy, much more so than a manufacturing economy anyway. And the reason I got into this, and the reason I do what I do is, and the why, and that's, I'm big about the why I do what I do is I found that other people were unable to express what makes them special because we were taught not to. We were told it's sounds egotistical, stuck up, whatever the adjective was at the time that you were raised. That has all fallen by the wayside, especially since the pandemic. And you are competing now at every age with everybody in every country in the world. Look, you do in New Zealand exactly what I do in Connecticut. We are what I call cooperators. We are competitive cooperators, but there's going to be a time where you're going to get a piece of business that I could have gotten. I'm going to get a piece of business. But if so long as we're pleasant and we're professional about it, we trade information with each other. I call you with a question. You contact me with a question. It becomes conversational property. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So LinkedIn is really great for professional practitioners because you are competing with people all over the world, all the time, 24/7, 365. And if you're not telling why you do what you do, why you're better, my word, amazinger than the competition, then you are not necessarily going to be considered to get the engagement. So you get one chance to make a great impression in life anyway, but you get less than a nanosecond or two of time of attention span when somebody comes to your LinkedIn profile. So it's better just shout out, hey, stop, read me, look at me, evaluate me, contact me.
I'm constantly surprised, Mark, by the number of people who don't understand the fact that when somebody Googles them or Googles their name, that their LinkedIn profile is going to come up right at the top of the listing. And that's because LinkedIn has just got great traction with Google. So that means, does it follow that their profile is the first thing that anybody in professional services needs to pay attention to before they do anything else?
Your professional profile on LinkedIn is your one chance to make an impression. You will never know who was not impressed and left because they leave. Remember the Roadrunner? Remember he would go whoosh and be gone? That's how fast they go. If they stick around and they read, you want them to be able to contact you. So everybody, look at your contact details. If your cell phone number and your email address and your website, and if you're a lawyer, for example, your bio on your law firm page, if they're not in your contact details, then you get the Roadrunner effect again, because they're not going to try to find you. They don't want to spend the time. Why the cell phone? Because everybody texts these days. So you want to be able to accept the text. If you put your office number, no one can text you. So it's time to wake up and join the 21st century. And so many people are saying, I don't want to put my cell phone number on there. People are going to call me. I don't want them to know what I'm doing. You get a crank call, you block the call. It's simple to me. So I've got an answer for every naysayer out there because I've been doing this for 13 years and I've got it down to a science right now. You really need to be not only impressive, but you need to be contactable easily.
I absolutely agree, because I often find, it happened to me yesterday, I was trying to find an email address for somebody who had got in touch with me and wanted to have a chat with me, and I wanted to send him a Calendly invite via an email, and I couldn't find his email address on his profile. Now, to me, that's such a basic thing to do, but if people aren't getting the basics right, Mark, then they're not going to have that impact on people. They're not going to be standing out from the competition, and they are going to lose opportunities, in my view, in terms of doing work with people. So my suggestion for anybody who is in professional services, and you've already confirmed that you agree with this, is to start with your profile. Now, there have been a few changes to profiles this year, and one of those that strikes me as being very useful, but we don't have it in New Zealand at this point yet, but you do in the United States, and that is verification, government verification. So I want to ask you about that. How easy a process is it, and whether you believe that it should be something that everybody needs to do because of the high number of fake profiles that are just flooding onto LinkedIn at present?
Well, I was really happy when they finally implemented this. I am the victim of a lot of approaches by women in Ghana who want to cut my hair. Now look at me. I don't need them to cut my hair. I don't need to go to Ghana to get my hair cut either. They typically all went to Harvard and they worked at big corporations before they decided to go cut hair. That just doesn't fit right. That is another reason why so many of us saw a change in the number of followers we have just a few weeks ago. I went from 21,000 to 18,000, but that's okay. 3,000 of the no-gooders are gone, and that's fine. I've never had a problem putting in government information because it's available anywhere else on the internet, and I was really happy that LinkedIn bought into this process. I hope it comes to New Zealand soon because it really ought to have been rolled through globally, but LinkedIn is not good about rolling things through globally, and they do some strange things, and it's probably just something weird about government information and correlating people to driver's licenses or whatever. And there's privacy laws that are different in the Eurozone as from the US and all that stuff. So it's very simple. It happened. They approached me electronically. I put in my driver's license. Within a week, I got the notification I was good. And so now everybody who looks me up and knows that the email address and the phone number that I'm using on my LinkedIn profile are really legit. Does my phone ring off the hook? Do I get emails all the time? Absolutely not. This is not the panacea for being amazinger. The other simple basic that people do incorrectly, and I know you see this all the time, Lynnaire, they copy and paste their resume to LinkedIn. Well, isn't that boring? Isn't that stupid? Okay? Stupid is the word, folks, because I always think your resume is your obituary. It says everything you used to do, and if you die tomorrow, they could write a great obituary from you from your resume. The LinkedIn profile has 3 tenses of the verb. It has the past indicates your present, where you came from, all the experience, all your skills, all were accumulated from your past experience, your past work, your past notifications, all the things you've done. Your present indicates where you are now, why people should be interested in you, with an eye towards the future, where both of you can ride together. Now, that doesn't matter if you're a job seeker, or you're an attorney, or a CPA, or an architect, or a videographer. It doesn't matter. Please never put your resume on your LinkedIn profile, copy paste. You can add it as an attachment if you're looking for a job. That's a good thing. But use narrative language. Use the pronoun I, my, mine, me. Talk with powerful verbs and use great career narrative to tell your story. Why? Because if you don't tell it, no one else will. Or they might, and you really won't like what you read about yourself. So don't use artificial intelligence. I know, Lynnaire, you're on top of that with me. You understand that. I am dead set against artificial intelligence. There are some people on this call right now who know a woman in one of our groups who looked herself up on AI and found out she had died. Isn't that outrageous? Now,
oh my goodness, no.
So in that she's a writer, I said, well, you can use the great Mark Twain quote, "The rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated." And that was just perfectly placed for her and for Mark Twain. So anyway, just be real. Be yourself. People need to understand why you contribute, why you're amazinger, what makes you interesting. You're not going to get that from your resume because it's just so formulaic. It only goes 2 pages. It goes with bullet points. I don't speak in bullet points. I speak a different language. I speak narrative language. So I am encouraging all of you, make your LinkedIn profile, fill in the gaps, complement your resume, complement your CV, as you may call it, complement the bio page on your professional practice firm's website, because that's formulaic also. Here's a place where you can do things like talk about flowers. You can talk about the nonprofit that you're on the board. You can talk about something that's important to you. You have lots of room to do it. And it's a living, breathing, organic document that only you can change. Once they receive your resume, it's done. It can't be changed. You can change your LinkedIn profile as you morph, as you mature, as you change. I'm about to undergo a pretty big change real soon. And that's something that, well, I'm not ready to talk about more than that. But when I do that, I'm hopping into LinkedIn. I'm going to make all the changes myself because I'm in charge of how I come across. And that also goes, and I'll stop talking, that also goes for attorneys. And now in most countries, you have very definite ways of things you can say and not say by ethical requirements. And only you are responsible for what you say. So if you break an ethical requirement, it's on you. If someone says something in your recommendation about you that's not in the ethical requirement, it's on you to make them edit that recommendation before you post it up there. So LinkedIn is not only a gift, it's a responsibility and a heavy burden, but only if you let it overwhelm you. I happen to love my LinkedIn profile. I've been writing it for 23 years. It's not a finished story. The saga continues. I love to make changes in it and tweak it every so often to keep it fresh.
I think it's an excellent idea to be doing that, and I'm constantly tweaking mine, as you might expect, as well. But Mark, I often come across people who are a little fearful, and they don't really either want to be standing out from other people, which of course is in 2023 is a nonsense. Otherwise, you just simply don't get noticed. But they're also a little bit fearful because of LinkedIn is their professional reputation, right? It is where they are online as themselves. They are not on Facebook hiding behind an avatar. They are here in a professional sense as their own, under their own name, under their own company. But there seems to be a degree of fear around using LinkedIn in the ways that you and I know are possible in order to be able to stand out, to get those jobs, to move up the career ladder. And I'm wondering what you would say to those people who come to you and say, well, Mark, this is all very well, and I understand exactly what you're talking about, but I'm really just a little bit scared of doing that and of the consequences if I do. What would you say to them? What's the advice that you give to people who are feeling just that little bit, oh, I'm not really sure if I want to do this?
Okay. Well, we talked a moment ago about how people are afraid of talking about themselves because they were raised not to talk about it. Okay, clergy parents, friends, you name it, teachers especially, sit in the back of the class and just listen. Well, you know what? Those of us like me who got on their report cards at every marking period, Marc talks too much, Marc talks out of turn. We were born to be entrepreneurs. Yeah, it makes two of us, of course. There we go. That's why we do what we do, right? Here's the acid test. That's ancient history, right? That's a long time ago. Here's the acid test. If I recommend you, Lynnaire, to somebody, I refer you to somebody. I say, Lynnaire is great. She's lots of fun to talk to. She has a great command of the information. She makes it interesting. All the accolades that I'm going to make you sound amazinger than anybody else that could be referred to this third person. That third person looks at Lynnaire's LinkedIn profile, and if it's substandard, they're wondering why bother. I got a referral that this person walks on water. I got a LinkedIn profile that says they're dull as dirt. Disconnect. Buzzers go off in our heads, and we don't understand. And what do? We move on. And there goes the roadrunner again. So you got to be yourself on LinkedIn. I had a guy today, and he's just got a brilliant past, a really interesting past. And it's the first LinkedIn that I looked at before he hired me was so dull. And we just finished doing his about section, his experience section. And he said, now it tells my story. I didn't know how to do it. So I'm going to tell you folks, and this is not an advertisement, and Lynnaire did not put me up for this, but ask an expert to help you if you need help. If you're stuck and you just can't get out of the, I'm afraid to talk about myself, that's what we do. We're not psychiatrists. God knows we've talked to people who need it. We are not psychologists because I don't like to give any advice that way. But I can tell you that what you said, you need to go a little further. You need to take another run around the track because I'm your coach. I want you to sweat a little bit more and work a little bit harder. And that's exactly what he said to me today. You're my coach, and that's why I hired you. And thank you for doing that. So that makes us feel good. It makes him feel better. So that's what we're here to do. That's what you need to do. You only get, as I said earlier, and I'll say it again and again, because a lot of these things we say on LinkedIn, you need to say in different ways, in different places, so that the first-time reader doesn't miss it. They get it in the second time or the third time. If you don't tell us, we'll never know. If you don't tell us how different, better, amazinger you are than the competition, you will miss an opportunity, and then you will complain that LinkedIn doesn't give you the ROI that you want. Whose fault is it?
You've been told. Right. Let's move on to companies, professional services firms themselves. We've been talking about personal profiles, but what do the companies, those who are managing professional services firms, Marc, need to do to stand out from their competition on LinkedIn? Because as we all know, company pages behave quite differently from professional profiles. So what is your advice for companies wanting to make a difference in terms of how they stand out? What's their point of difference, their particular why? How can they do that on LinkedIn?
Well, one of the things I encourage all my firms that I work with when I go in and I train is I work with the marketing department. I try to understand what's the thrust of what you're trying to convey. And they'll say, oh, we want to be better. We want to get more revenue. No. What makes your firm unique? I'm not asking about what makes the individual attorney or accountant or architect in the firm unique. That's a personal thing. What makes the firm unique? And I can't answer that. They have to answer that. So it has to be another iteration of the marketing drive that they have on their website and on all their other material. What it has to do is it has to be projected frequently in different ways as the industry changes. How is the firm ahead of a certain legislation that came out that was just passed? How is the firm reacting to a Supreme Court ruling? How is the firm handling something that is globally oriented? This is a place where the firm can talk about itself as a unified whole, because people will follow the firm on LinkedIn that are different than people who follow the individuals who work at the firm. on LinkedIn. So I always say, let's sit down for the first 12 months. Let's create a marketing material content calendar. What are you going to talk about in January? And how are you going to feed onto that into February? And how do we make this an organic, moving document where there's an iteration of additional information because it comes at the reader? And if the reader wants to go back and look at the company profile page, they can catch up. That you don't really get in LinkedIn for the personal side, because if you put out a post today, the snowflake falls in the snowstorm and all the other stuff falls on top of it. But in the company profile page, you've got more space, you've got more places to put it. The most important thing is to make the firm look as big as it is, and if it's a two-person firm, make it look bigger than it really is. Don't say, and if you're a one-person firm like I am, I don't say I on my company profile page, I say we. And the reason I use we is I rely upon a wonderful group of consultants and experts who I can rely upon, when they're included, that we can all answer through my voice. If I have a question and I can't answer it, I'm going to look to my expertise. And that's the we. And again, narrative sentences, story of the firm, narrative career story of the firm. Where did it come from? A lot of firms merge. Talk about the mergers. Talk about what happened when the merger occurred. If you're going to merge or you just merged, talk about the strengths that come from the merger. Don't expect us to think this through. We can't divine this stuff. We need you to tell us. Don't expect everybody to go to your website either, because they can want to read your company profile page from LinkedIn. Why should they go fishing around on the internet looking for your website? And most law firm websites are kind of, they're all about the same. Make your company profile page a little bit more fun. Show the company picnic. Show, whatever it is. Show when you went and you did Habitat for Humanity or build houses for, poor people or whatever it is. Show when the firm has been nominated for awards through excellence, through service to other people by peer-oriented groups. All this stuff makes an impression.
I agree, and I think that it is important that firms encourage their teams, their team members, their staff to be active on LinkedIn and to make use of the platform for their own professional development and career development, but also because it makes the company look good. And I often come across people who work for professional services firms, and I'm sure you're the same, Mark, who would like their companies to be more not sympathetic, but they'd like more encouragement from their companies in terms of their own content. And I believe that firms, professional services firms and firms generally, don't see their teams on LinkedIn or team members as the asset that they really are. And if they were to encourage their teams by offering potentially to promote the individual team members' content, which is now being rolled out as a new feature as part of the advertising platform, but also then perhaps the companies could be commenting, engaging on the individual's content. There are a lot of things I think that companies could be doing to encourage their teams to do more work on LinkedIn, to be more involved, and to get a better result on LinkedIn that benefits everybody. Because as they say, the good old adage, a rising tide lifts all ships. And if companies were to support their team members more on LinkedIn, and this is the question I'm asking you, I believe that they could be getting better results. Do you agree, or do you think I'm on the wrong track with that one?
In a perfect world, I would agree with you. I would say that this is a two-edged sword. Many of these firms, especially the intellectual property firms, lawyers, accountants, financial services firms that I work with, they have compliance issues. They have all sorts of limitations on what they can and can't say. Many of the employees are very stymied by the type of content they can put out because it has to be blessed by the corporation. So everybody's afraid to go to the compliance office. Well, I have news for you. My wife's cousin is a compliance officer in a very large financial services firm down on Wall Street. And he says people come to me looking like they're about to wet their pants. They don't want to talk to me. And I said, well, why? Because he said, we have such a bad reputation. And that is that we always seem to say no. He said, I'm just waiting for somebody to say, well, you said no, but what's a middle ground? Where can we find the meeting of the minds between compliance and the marketing department so that the employees have more material to more content to push out there on LinkedIn? There's a very large insurance company, and I know a number of the people that work at the insurance company, and they put out the exact same material every day. So we've got 35 people putting out the same content on Monday. Same thing, and it drives me nuts, and it doesn't do well for the firm. So when I show it to the firm and they say, well, that's the way it is, that's what our compliance people say, I said, let me add them. Let me talk to them and let me see whether we can find a middle ground. And so far, I haven't been completely successful because the compliance people don't want to talk to a renegade who doesn't know their industry like me. Fine. But if they read what they saw coming from the firm, they'd be mortified. That's the negative side. The positive side is if you can get everybody in the firm to be speaking with the same language about the same issues that they're facing, about client wins, if it's appropriate, about things like that, and let them just tweak the language a little bit, you won't get 36 cookie cutter posts. You'll get 36 interesting posts, everybody with a little bit of their personality in it. But that is, of course, a dream I have, and someday I will win this battle. And the other thing is, some firms are just scared to death what their employees are going to say. This is the wind them up and let them go, and it's scary for some corporations. So there's all phases of gray, all shades of gray here, Lynnaire, between what you're hoping and saying and what I'm hoping and saying. But if you're listening and you can go to your compliance office and say, I'd like to change my LinkedIn profile, or I'd like to publish an article I wrote, would you look at it and tell me, not yes or no, but tell me where you would like an amendment and how can we make it palatable to the firm? You're going to go a lot farther.
Oh, that's a good bit of advice. Now, a lot of people wouldn't think to do that, Mark. It's all in how you approach the compliance officer, is what you're saying. Exactly.
Someday I'll talk to a group of compliance officers. That would be a lot of fun.
All right. So let's then cover a couple of specific things that people who are in professional services firms need to make sure that they do on LinkedIn. These are the things that to you and I are no-brainers, but things that other people might not necessarily know that they should do. Now, what would you say? Let's just say make it a list of 3 things that professional services team members absolutely need to have on their profiles that they might not already have thought about.
First and foremost, post material if you can. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily post something controversial. You can read an article and you can just post it and say, I really thought this article raised an interesting point. That's all I can say. Compliance can't be terribly upset with that, but ask them, okay? We just had the whole conversation on compliance. Thank you to somebody. Congratulations on your promotion to somebody. Let's make this nice. Let's make it enjoyable. Let's make it a friendly environment. So I would say that increasing the personality and the personalization of what you say is really important. Please, let's get rid of the emojis. Those are for 5th graders. They do this all day long. No more thumbs up and clapping hands and all that stuff. Let's use language. Lynnaire, great news. They're fortunate to have you. Congratulations. Something like that. I don't think compliance is going to have an issue with that. You ask, see what they say, okay? If it's an internal promotion, all the more. Let's rally the troops. Let's get everybody together and make it, camaraderie. That's great. So let's think about ways to be more human in our content. And I think If we must feed the algorithm monster, that might help you a little bit. I'm not even going to go there because I am not a fan of the algorithm. I wrote an article, F the algorithm, a while ago. I have had it with the changes in this thing. I say people will recognize your quality based upon what, why you say it, and how personality dictates who you are and what you say outwardly. So that's where I would say. That's the first thing. You can go into creator mode. You can turn it on. You can write long form articles. Again, if your compliance will let you. If you don't have compliance issues, you are so lucky. Write things you're seeing. What is coming across your screen? What is your interpretation through your experience lens? Today, I suggested to a guy, he write what I learned in my 10 years owning and running my own business. Retrospective, very interesting. Everybody's going to answer that question differently. What is different now about owning my own business than what 10 years ago would be a follow-up question, that type of thing. And so these are the types of things that just takes a little bit of creativity. Look and see what month it is. If it's National Soda Pop Month, find an article to make it go with soda pop or whatever it is that you're trying to make people lighten up a little bit, because it gets too heavy. If you're in a heavy field, lawyers, accountants, be fun. The other thing I would say is, and third one, and I didn't think about writing this down, but it just hit me. You mentioned I'm a multipreneur. I have run into so many professional practitioners who have more than one business, and it can be really fascinating. Divorce attorneys who are comics on a stage at night. Now, you wouldn't think that divorce attorneys would necessarily be very funny, but they can be really hilarious. I have corporate attorneys who will come into your home, into your kitchen, and cater an entire dinner party for you. And there's a reason for all this, why people who see a lot of sadness want to hear happiness, or why people who work on long-term projects like corporate law want to see a project start and finish, clean up, and leave, because it gives them a sense of finality. And there's psychologically human needs for expressing these things, and talk about what makes you tick as a multipreneur. If you don't have a second business, talk about where you find satisfaction in what you do, people you've made happy, quotes you've received from people who were happy about the work you did. You don't have to name them. You don't have to name the case you worked on or how many millions of dollars you saved them from not going to the tax court. But nonetheless, talk about the successes you've had, the accomplishments you've had, and what people said and how they appreciate you. Because you know what? Everybody loves a story. The story is the oldest form of human engagement ever, from the caveman time. You are challenged, you analyze the challenge, you rise to the challenge, you reflect back on the challenge. It's in every movie you've ever heard of before. It's in every novel you've ever read. It's everywhere. Play into it, because we love stories and we remember stories. And when somebody says, hey, I need an accountant who can do this, in their head, that Rolodex file is going, and they're going to remember you because you wrote a post on that and they want to talk.
One of the most interesting posts that you've written, well, for me, was one recently where you talked about compost. Now, you and I, as I mentioned at the top of the show, are both avid gardeners. And I have often done posts about gardening to lesser or greater effect, depending on what it is I'm talking about. But when I saw your post about compost, I just rolled on the floor laughing. I could not believe that you could turn something that was really the kind of back part of the gardening that nobody talks about, and you just brought it right up front and you just made it such an entertaining post. Now, I don't know how well that post did, and I'm obviously not your intended audience, but I just loved the surprise. The fact that I was not expecting something like that. I was expecting more something along the lines of, I would say, potentially something that was going to be more like this maybe when it comes to your post. But composting. So Marc, tell us how you managed to bring in your personalization, your love of gardening, because it's not the only example I've seen of you do this, where you brought in gardening into your LinkedIn, and what it means to you to be able to talk about gardening. And we'll come back to this beautiful photo in just a minute once you've explained to us why you do that. Why gardening and LinkedIn?
Gardening to me is one of the most rewarding. When you get, I did not grow this. Oh, I wish I grew this. This is just so gorgeous. This is from the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. But I grow things that have multiple colors and just vibrancy and things like that, because what I do is fun. I have great fun in what I do, but I love to take a step away from the office and go out my back door, because I work at home, and go into my garden and just sort of oddly pick weeds or move the flowers around, or just be sure everything's okay there, because it gives me a sense of completion. When I see a flower bloom, like I had blue nigella bloom this week, I was like ecstatic, because a woman gave me seeds for this, and it just made me feel so good. And I thanked her, and she and I got back into our connection again. I post about things that come through my life, and I have this bizarre way of correlating them to LinkedIn. And my wife will say to me, something weird will happen. She goes, "That car that just cut you off on the highway, you're going to make a post out of that on LinkedIn. You're going to find a way to do it." Well, I guess she knows me. It's been a long time. 2,400 posts later, you really begin to look creatively for things to write. You just can't write the same thing all over again. But compost is interesting because you put in stuff and you roll it around and it comes out better. And that's what, this is crazy. I just put a bunch of watermelon rinds from the watermelon we had for dinner tonight into the compost, and 6 months later it's going to be garden soil, and it's going to be better than I can buy, and it's something I made myself. And so I've added to the value, and there's a metaphor here, and I love working in the metaphors of life and how business and life interchange. I don't know. Sometimes I sit down and go, I got to write another one of these, and it's only 300 words, 400 words, and it's not long, and 2 minutes read or whatever. But I really have fun with it. And when I get comments like what you said, this is delightful, and thank you for the comments on that. I was speaking to a woman last week in New York, and she said to me, "I've been reading your posts for a while." And I actually went way back to see how they've improved. And she says, "What I love about what you write right now is you're so honest. You're so direct." Well, you probably got that. I'm a pretty direct guy. I pretty well tell it like it is. That's what we do here in the New York area. We like to get it done. And so to me, writing something that has an effect where somebody appreciates the fact that we're directly impressing them to go further, run faster, jump off a taller building, that's important. That's what I like to do. That's the satisfaction I get. But I love that. And if you really look carefully, 1 second, I got to tell everybody the big secret. If you really look carefully, underneath the bottommost petal in the middle, there's a little wasp wandering his way up into that. And the wasps sometimes lay their eggs inside a poppy line. Isn't that gorgeous?
It's beautiful. Marc is a stunning photographer. He and I are friends on Facebook as well, and I love some of the photographs he puts up there. He changes his cover photo almost daily, and constantly puts up some other photos, but I want to show you this one. Marc sent me this one just this week. Now, this guy needs a name. He's absolutely beautiful. So our team member Cher thought this was a praying mantis. Is she right?
She is right, but since it's a praying mantis, it's probably not a he, it's probably a she.
Oh,
because in the mating ritual, I don't know if you know this, but the female eats the male.
Say that again?
In the mating ritual, the female eats the male. Male praying mantises don't have a long shelf life, shall we say.
Right. Best I don't comment on that,
She
Marc.
came to my garden last year, and she was at the same place for days and days and days. And she got more and more comfortable with me, and I took my little cell phone, my little iPhone, and I got closer. Every day I got closer and closer and closer. And I swear I think she's smiling at me here because
Yeah, I think she is.
absolutely went crazy when I got this picture. I went nuts because it's so interesting.
It's just fabulous. You really do have a way with photos. There's no question. I absolutely love it.
Very much.
And so let me just share with everyone the third photo that you sent me. Now, my favorite color is blue. And so what's not to love about this particular photo? It just made me smile because yellow, sunshine, and the combination of these colors, Marc, is absolutely stunning.
And you know where this came from? I never told you this. My wife got a birthday card, and in that birthday card were impregnated all sorts of wildflower seeds. So what do? I let her read the card, and I ran it out to the garden and planted it. And so out of that came these dwarf morning glories. And next year I'm going to find dwarf morning glory seeds and plant them because I just think the blue color is so rare in nature, in flowers, that any blue flower to me is just stand up, saluting importance. It's just so gorgeous. So anyway, this is fairly recent.
I'm certainly absolutely enjoy these photos, and I'm so pleased that you sent them so that we could include them in what we're talking about today. And I want to let people know that Marc and I bonded, of course, over LinkedIn, but also through our common love of dahlias and zinnias. And I had a fabulous display of zinnias last year, thanks to Marc's really good advice about how to grow them really well. And they've just flowered and flowered and flowered. Now, when it comes to LinkedIn, I have been talking about my garden on LinkedIn. I tend to do post at the weekend about my garden. So I might be all dressed up in a jacket during the week, but I put on my gardening clothes at the weekend, and I go out and I take a photo or do a video and share that with potentially a link back to LinkedIn, because I think that, you know, being a business and a professional platform, that's important. But I love to be able to share my other love, so my LinkedIn love and my gardening love, into simple posts, and people seem to like them. I get really good engagement on those particular posts, even though I put them up at weekends. And so I want to encourage people to do that, to talk about the things that are important to them, things that they do in their own personal lives that they think other people might find interesting, or there might be synergies with. And I also want to encourage people to read Marc's blog. So Cher, if we could put on the screen the link to Marc's website where people can go and sign up for his daily blog. And I've been a professional writer all my adult life, and I can tell you that Marc is twice, 3 times the writer that I am. He is absolutely amazing. He has a wonderful turn of phrase, and he has absolutely beautiful posts, and I don't know how he manages to do them. So I am just thrilled that I get the opportunity to not only read your fantastic post, but to talk to you about gardening, to have you on my LinkedIn Live, and to also allow other people to have the opportunity to ask you questions. So I want to start with, we've got 2 questions that I think you might like to answer. So the first is from our friend Wayne, and I want to just put this up on the screen so that you can see what he's asking. Now, he's a videographer, and so he wants to know whether that would be considered a professional service, and if so, how he can best promote himself on the platform, because of course videographers tend to work in person. So he's a bit like you. Only you're the photographer and he's the videographer. He's very clever, just like you.
Well, Wayne, I don't know you. I haven't looked at your profile, but I would suspect that you're probably making video posts to LinkedIn with your content. So you can talk about a particularly challenging assignment that you had and how you persevered, and show a sample of it if you have the authority to do that. You know, sometimes you've got to get that all checked out with the client. You can have people recommend you on LinkedIn in words. They can't do it in video. I wish someday they would, but nonetheless, about why you made them feel so comfortable. I love doing video with professionals because they make me comfortable. And if I'm not comfortable, I'm not at my best. So those types of things. You can run a series of articles about how to get the best lighting when you're doing videography by yourself, how to package it, how long do people pay attention. All these are things that you probably get questions about, or you've written about, or other people are writing about. And if you're not writing about it, then you've got to be amazinger than them, and you've got to jump in and you've got to say it from your perspective. So you're definitely professional service because you're doing something intellectual property. You are handing them over a intangible product, which is fine. It's electronic, but promote yourself by showing your work and showing others who appreciate why you do so well.
Brilliant answer. And we have one more question. So let's have this on the screen too. So as this is an interesting one. A professional Santa Claus and balloon artists would be considered professional service.
Well, this is an industry I've not worked in yet, but I love it.
Well, this is an interesting one.
That's the beauty of live TV. You know, anything can happen. And thank you for making it jolly. What shall I say? You should show pictures of yourself dressed as Santa Claus. You could show video of yourself with a little kid on your knee at the department store, whatever it is, as a balloon artist. I mean, I'm still an adult. I try not to be, but I'm still an adult. And I still love to watch balloon artists work. So show us some of the more complex balloon art you've done. Show us in 2 or 3 minutes how to make a little dog. Because you know what? Some of us do that for our kids for their birthday parties, and we end up popping the balloon and we end up ruining it for everybody. So tell us what we can do better. And, you know, obviously you want to get hired. Show us yourself in action at a party with a bunch of little kids squealing with delight. Talk to Wayne. Maybe he wants to video that. See, Wayne, I'm helping you out here. All these things that you can do to show yourself in the best light, you can manage it.
One of the things I love about, one of the many things I love about LinkedIn is the fact that there is always a way for anybody who is in any kind of work generally to be able to use LinkedIn well, to be able to network with people, to meet new people, to be able to get the message out there about their businesses, to be able to talk about the things they love, to talk about their values, to talk about what their companies are doing and what's going on in their particular interest, field of interest or industry. Get it right. And so I want to wrap up, Marc, with just a couple of tips that people can take away. You've given us such great advice today, but a couple of tips potentially that's about things I might not have mentioned that you think people really should pay attention to, should be looking out for, or where potentially you see there might be some growth areas on LinkedIn that they could take advantage of that would make them amazinger. I love that, amazinger than their competition.
I'll recommend 2 books. Let's just go that way. One book is called Start with Why, W-H-Y.
Oh, yeah, Simon Sinek. Yeah.
If you don't want to read it, which is a shame if you don't, you can watch an 18-minute TED Talk, which just about summarizes the whole book. There's actually a woman in Australia named 𝗪𝗏𝗄𝗏 who has a art business, and I don't know her, I've never met her, maybe she's listening, who knows, and she takes books and summarizes them down to 1 page using graphics. So have a look for that online. It's great. I love using that in my presentations because it's really simple. So never talk about what. Let other people talk about how well you do. You talk about why you do it. The other book I really like, and that's for especially people who are in transition, are thinking about leaving a position, are thinking about an encore career, are thinking about retiring, are thinking about what are they going to do for the rest of their life, even if they have a paying job. It's called The Startup of You, Y-O-U. It's written by Reid Hoffman, which may be a familiar name to you. He was one of the founders of LinkedIn. And not because he's one of the founders of LinkedIn, but because this is an amazing book. And be sure to get the second edition, which is written after the pandemic, because they really made a number of really great improvements to the book in the pandemic, stories and lessons from the pandemic. The Startup of You by Reid, R-E-I-D, Hoffman, H-O-F-F-M-A-N. You will see in that book, he says, it's okay to be an unfinished product. It's okay to be in beta. And I don't know about you, and I sort of hinted a little bit, I'm changing some of my business in a bit. I'm never finished. I just will not finish. I have changed my career 5 times. I have got another one in me somewhere. I've got another book in me somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to do it or how I'm going to do it, but I'm still morphing. I'm still in beta. So I'm not a finished product. So you're probably nodding to yourself, oh, I'm not a finished product yet, but I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Well, take a look at this book. It's really well done. And it really does answer a lot of questions that my clients come to me because they don't know how to express their being in this interim period. It's very difficult. We're not trained to talk about it. It becomes, with a great LinkedIn profile and understanding your why and understanding that you're always in beta, it becomes a really great way to formulate great interview answers to dumb interview questions.
I was going to leave it there, Mark, but in actual fact, we've just got another question I think you might like to take a look at because it talks about credibility. And so why don't we finish off with this one where someone's asking about credibility in the legal field, because I think that it might be important just to cover this too.
Okay. If you're a lawyer in a firm, again, you got to check with the marketing department. You got to check with the ethics officer in the firm. You know what you can and cannot say. I don't know where this person is, and the laws are different. The rules are different in Canada versus the U.S., in Australia versus, anywhere. They're all different. Even in the United States, they're different state by state. So it's a never-ending battle about what can't we say. But I would say that analyze for the lay community what you're seeing as a legal professional. A ruling comes out, a legislation is passed. I think we talked about this. You read about something. I know a guy who tweets every day the top 10 legal tweets that he's seen coming along in Twitter, or X as it's called as of today. Be a reliable spokesperson. I have just a great way to wrap this up. I have 3 R's and 4 C's in everything that you do. And maybe this will really help for the lawyers and everybody else in professional practice. Be reliable, always. I need my glasses to see what I wrote. Be relevant, always be talking about something that people can relate to. Because you can talk about it all day long, you're never going to listen to you if you don't. And be referable. I need somebody who, your name, your face, your contact information needs to pop to the front of their mind. And the 4 C's. In what you write and what you tell others who don't know you or are learning to get to know you, be concise, be cogent, be compelling, be consistent in all of that. And I don't know any other way to say it. You know it, but we tend to get off the beaten track. And the important thing is, if you will follow these 3 R's and 4 C's, you will find a way to hit a nerve with an audience that will rely upon you, there's an R, to be consistent. There's a C. And I can jumble these up in all different permutations. It's so important because you know what your competition is saying, and you know how the law is always changing, and you know how you are changing, and you know how you have to teach the younger folks that are coming in as new associates. These are things that you can convey to other people as a spokesperson for the firm. If you run your own firm, all the more reason you have to be doing this for and as the firm.
Mark, you've given us such great advice, and I love the fact that that question brought out from you those 3 R's and 4 C's, because those are absolutely critical on LinkedIn, and I am so pleased that you shared them. I'm also so delighted that you shared your time with us this morning for me and this evening for you. So thank you so very much, and also thank you for so many people who attended today, made comments, asked questions, and generally joined in our LinkedIn Live today. So, Mark, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Connecticut in the USA. And we will look forward to having you back here on another LinkedIn Live sometime in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
It's been a great pleasure. So thank you to everybody else. We've got 2 more events coming up in August that you may be interested in, a LinkedIn Live again towards the end of the month. And also we have another LinkedIn audio event, one of those little easy ones that I just love to do on August the 10th. The dates of those are just coming right on up. So thank you so very much for joining us today. And we hope we will see you very soon again on the next one. And bye for now.